For our final lightning talk presentation, we have Laci Videmsky, who is going to be talking to us about a new project building on an old project called the New California Water Atlas.
Hi. Thanks to the organizers for inviting me. Someone just give me a 1-minute warning. I've been getting good at talking slow, so I'm going to have to go lightning speed now. Here's my clicker. So I'm the project director of the New California Water Atlas. Some of my Atlas collaborators are right here, Jeannie Wang and Chris Long. Please say hi to them. And I know I have a weird name, so I've given you this canned mnemonic. And I work at a place called the Resource Renewal Institute. They're a environmental think tank of sorts, and they seed really innovative and wild ideas. One of those wild ideas was growing salmon in rice fields. Maybe some of you have heard of that project. That got its start there. The Resource Renewal Institute is also continuing to look at innovative aquaculture techniques with different species of fish. They interview environmental leaders, and then of course they're sponsoring an effort to explore ways we can share data. Now, my background, I came from the civic hacker community. If you don't know what a civic hacker is, it's basically people who come together and make government work better for the citizens they serve. Groups like Code for America, Open Knowledge Foundation, Sunlight Foundation, they send these coders and data nerds into government to make government work more efficiently and use open source technologies, open data, and various open government methodologies. So this was last weekend, National Day of Civic Hacking. Basically, people come and pitch in and work with local government. And what we were asking as civic hackers, but also interested in resources, was why can't we send these coders to these other types of institutions? They serve our cities and our regions, and they deserve the enthusiasm and talents of these folks. Wow, you can't see the language there, but open data has really been a revolution in a lot of different sectors. Open data, made a whole weather industry able to mature. So we're talking like a $2 billion industry was able to grow out of open weather data. Wow, my titles are not on here. It's transformed disaster response. It's transformed and is transforming the energy sector. And so what we're asking is, how can we what are the opportunities in making water data more highly accessible and available? So we were originally inspired and somewhat naively by a project called the California Water Atlas, which was put out by the Governor's Office of Research and Planning in the late 70s. And it was amazing work, a canonical work in terms of mapping. But as this kind of comprehensive owner's manual put out by a government agency, it was a really exciting and inspiring piece of work to learn from. And so we approached it thinking, well, could we do this online? Could we provide the kind of level of quality and comprehensiveness and I think we were somewhat abruptly surprised at the condition of the data. The first project we put out was the Water Rights Interactive, and we, the approach we took was, and this is generally an open data concept, is you're proactive with the data, you're not reactive. Reactive data is your FOIA request. I need to ask for something, and then government provides it. Proactive is data open by default. Here's all of it, so show everything. Yeah, my titles are totally washed out, so I'm missing some of my cues here. And then how can can we provide the right types of filters and queries that make it useful? And then really at the heart is providing the data as a bulk download and as an API. And an API is an application programming interface, which is a fancy way of saying, here, it's a fire hose of data. My machine can talk to your machine. I don't have to, I can listen for when new data comes online, and then my servers get that data. This is really where everything is moving. And bulk downloads, one button, I get your whole data set. If you want to disaggregate that, offer that as another bulk download, but never in lieu of the full dump. We're trying to get away from this. I spent a month of my life downloading groundwater elevation data out of this portal, and I'm not pointing fingers. I think these things move fast, and so we need to recognize what are the new ways of working with data. And one of those ways is not having a login, is just having that big download me button all at once, so that someone doesn't have to do this, which is 1,000 records at a time with 500,000 roughly, water elevation data points, time series data, rate limited at 1,000 records per click. You do the math, that's a lot of work. And there's no automated way to do this. There's no exposed APIs. It's web sessions, so it times out often. And, of course I know I can pick up the phone. And I eventually did, and because it took me a month to get 30 years, but that's not the point. The point is that you shouldn't have to pick up the phone. You should, if it's public data, make it available in an easy way. And the idea being that we want to inspire conversation about activating many participants to be part of the solution, and that's really the value of open data and open government. We're trying to get away from this, the kind of singular actors that have privileged access to the data. And there's a diversity problem, and I mean that literally. And so, yes, we need to work on that too. Our new project is a water pricing interactive. We're basically, because the data is not available comprehensively across the state, we put together a project where we're asking residential water users to submit data from their water bill. Not a water bill like the full bill, just various data points. So you're presented with a form that has two stages to it. If you get a flat rate bill or a metered bill, if you click on the meter, it asks for two more pieces of information, your quantity and the units that it's measured by. The idea being that we want to start a conversation about what the price of water is, region to region, city to city. And there are so many agencies, as you know, it'd be really hard to call them all up and get them to give us our data. The California PUC, who we worked with on this project, they give us their data and are going to continue to provide additional data. Here's some of the PUC's data. And we're open to the other agencies participating in this as well. So we invite them to submit their data here as well. And I think this will give us a chance to really examine what the price of water is and better understand the kind of whether our water is being provided in a sustainable way. And of course, APIs and bulk downloads with documentation. And we work in a very collaborative way with across disciplines. All of our work, both the data and the software, is available on GitHub. The documentation's on GitHub, and direct downloads are coming from Dropbox, but the URLs are in the repositories. And we're really playing with new opportunities for how we visualize this information. We're not trying to do this. I know this is necessary for some professionals to get their work done, but that's not the approach. Nor are we doing this. And I love the Water Education Foundation, but this is appropriate in certain contexts. We're trying to find a middle ground, which is more almost like a interactive museum exhibit. And of course, there's a lot of really excellent things you can do in the browser. This is a map that's visualizing the stream gauges from USGS. So the size of the dot is the flow rate, and then in CFS. Wow, you can't see. There's a list of tools. That's not the list, but there was an overlay on that of all the tools we use. But and similar to what Paul mentioned, we use Leaflet on the front end. We use Node for our servers. We use MongoDB as a document store, and then QGIS for doing mockups and prototypes. And then there's a ton of data munging tools that we use, like Python and Google Refine. I mean, these are all off the top of my head because I can't see my notes. But of course, we like to look at how other people have visualized water data. There's a lot to learn from history. Some of the projects we're working on, some of that water data that came out of one of those portals, we're visualizing monitoring wells. This is just in a very rough alpha. And there's clearly some issues. All the well logs are private still. We're the last state in the West that are keeping them private. So a lot of good conversations to have. Also, again, the power of open source. Victor Powell built this visualization for KQED, put it on their blog. He open sourced it on GitHub. So that's something we can reincorporate, put into our project, and people can then, it's just more highly visible. Of course, we credit his work. And then we're working on a new project to build a platform so that citizens can share their stories about California water in their neck of the woods and some of the things that they're being impacted by. Also, and it's very much building from the efforts of today and in the fall, together with the center here, we're putting on an Open Water Summit in Sacramento in the spring, which will hopefully continue this conversation, but with the emphasis on open data and the public agencies that we hope to collaborate with. Oh, and I slipped this in because of just all the cool data nerdiness that's been going on. You should know about this guy, Max Ogden. He has a really amazing project called DAT, which is versioning for data. Very cool, meaning you can roll the clock back on your data. You can understand its provenance and who's changed what and when. Just like GitHub. Thanks. Any questions? Yeah.
Hi, I have a question about the real cost of water.
Yes.
Have you considered adding in a layer that talks about government subsidy for water so that we know what the real cost of water is?
No, actually, that's a really good point. This is very much kind of taking it from the other end at the residential level. I understand exactly what you're getting at. We're trying to highlight, and that's why we've kind of put in the Palmer Drought Severity Index as a kind of a wallpaper of sorts, is to really showcase the disconnect between the price of water and scarcity. And that, your price of water is not necessarily tied to whether water is abundant locally, but it's really way more complex and it has to do with this kind of geographic scale of water distribution. But that'd be a really great layer. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Laci. So with that, we are concluding the lightning round. I hope that this has been educational for you, edifying. I imagine that it's confirmed some things you thought and also expanded your mind in new ways as to what you thought was available. So thank you very much. We invite you to take a short break, returning at 3 p.m. When we will have our next plenary session. Please return. I think you'll really enjoy it. Thank you.